Hey everybody, it's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday, and welcome to this week's edition of Hook, Line, and Striker.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And I'm laughing because we just got caught up like talking right before the show, and then Josh was like, "Oh, it's showtime," and like clicked us in, and we're all like, get ready, as if we change anything once we're here with you guys, because that's again what we do, is just sit and chat and have a great time. And it's all about fishing anyways, so I'm looking forward to it as always.
Yeah. And so hi to all you there out in Facebook land and YouTube land, make sure you like the buttons and subscribe the push things and whatever we're supposed to say.
Something like that.
And let's have a good night. I know we've had a lot of comments talking about Captain Donnie, so it'll be fun to bring him in.
Well, and as we let people kind of tune in quick, we usually kind of give a fishing report for our local area. And, we are kind of that northeast Wisconsin-ish, because I'm really kind of like not the middle of that. But, Wolf River is where we've been fishing. So if you know that region, that's where we're at. And how's it been going?
Well, we got caught up fishing and we got in kind of late on Sunday. We didn't get our fishing report in. But fishing was pretty decent actually on Saturday. We had a little bit of lingering warm weather, and we found some crappies and some of the backwaters on the upper Wolf. Water temps were in mid 70s, kind of crazy because the week before they were like 50. So that was a crazy spike in temp. Sunday we kind of kicked our butts. That front moved in, and we caught some fish.
We also did go very far south in the system. And we found that even the water temps were a little bit different. So up north, we found that they were a little bit warmer, and down south, they were a little bit cooler. I mean, I'm saying these are such warmer water temps than a week ago. So we were like just above and below 70, depending on if we were north and south, kind of respective there. But, we were able to find tons of panfish, and we keep hearing, different people talk about white bass, and we did see some get caught. We saw some walleyes get caught. But I think that is the exciting thing about this time of the season, is there is a lot of fish flowing through the system and going out. You very well might have a mixed bag day.
Yeah, so that kind of was our story when we went out and we fished white bass and didn't find any for us, but then we decided to take that evening, take a couple hours and just go try our hand at some crappies, and we got a couple. We went back and did a pass, and then it was a couple really big smallmouth and some perch, and we're like, well, it's almost dark and we're going in.
So with that, let us know where you guys are at. Let us know how your fishing is going. Let us know where your water temps are at, because right now I feel like everybody is everywhere. Yeah. And that's actually really interesting to be following along. So with that, I guess let us know if you have questions and things during the show. Otherwise, let's bring in our guest. So Captain Donnie, welcome to the show.
How's it going?
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, of course.
So Captain Donnie, we have talked to you maybe a time or two, but I imagine there might be people here joining us that haven't gotten to meet you yet. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Captain Donnie O'Bert. I'm a full-time fishing guide on Rainy Lake. I do spend some time in the spring on the Rainy River as well, chasing walleyes there on the Rainy River, and then straight into a sturgeon bite, typically. And then once we can get on the lake, I stay on Rainy Lake the rest of the year. I don't travel. I live on the lake here. I guide on the lake here year-round, 4 seasons. So fishing is all I do. I typically fish over 300 days a year. I would go so far as to say I'm a bit of an addict. But that can maybe be a discussion for another time.
Yeah, that's true. Like Fishing Anonymous or something. I'll send Josh. Like send me too, but it's like different. I'm kidding. But it's funny because you guys all the way up north. Well, I guess it's not even funny. I shouldn't even say that. Up north, you guys like just barely had ice out. So let's start going back a little bit. How did your ice season go?
Our walleye season went well, and that's typically from, we really go strong here from about Christmas time through January, and then we take a little time off in February, and then March we get right into crappies typically. And I will say that this year was so cold and we had so much snow that the areas we crappie fish are accessible only by snowmobile. And we had so much slush and so much snow cover that it turns out you got to have March to have March crappie fishing. And we never had March. It felt like it was, January straight through. So, I mean, just brutally cold temperatures. And so I run a Skidoo Scandic, super wide track, just a gigantic snowmobile. And the headlight was under slush for some of the places that we fished. So I called an audible this year, and I did contact several customers and just said, hey, the crappie fishing is not, what I would consider standard for where we're at. And I offered some pike tip-up fishing trips if customers were interested. Well, it turns out a lot of customers were interested. So I did run probably 20 tip-up trips with for pike and had some spectacular results. I mean, it was actually way more popular than I mean, that's what I grew up doing was tip-up fishing. So for me, it was kind of returning to my roots, but for guiding that way was something that was kind of new to me, and we'll be doing more of it. We had a lot of fun, or at least I had a lot of fun, setting flags and grilling steaks and sitting playing cribbage, and we're just watching flags go up. It was a good time. And then we went, then we go straight into the Rainy River. So Rainy River was brutally cold. Water temps were unseasonably and unreasonably cold. So that was a bit of a struggle. It's really been kind of a struggle up here. We really haven't had spring. Today's like been the first nice day. So our water temps, we're back on the lake now, and it's past the opener, and our main water basin temperatures are still 39, 40 degrees. I mean, it's cold. It's cold. Our ice just went out the 12th or the 13th. And what is it today? Like the 17th or something? Like, I mean, our ice literally just went out. So we're a little behind the curve here, and hoping for some warm days and start the process here.
That was like a whole lot of. There was a whole lot of great information there. But, I have to laugh at, all the way back. You were talking even about your pike trips, that you do all those fun things on the side, grilling and even whatnot. Cause I was like, man, for like a tip up trip, like that is a lot of like waiting around, or can be, compared to jigging and whatnot. So that does sound actually pretty fun.
Sure. Well, you got to be real entertaining if you're a guide. Well, there's no flasher to look at. There's no live scope. There's no, I mean, you got to be, if you're going to guide on tip-up trips, you got to be a storyteller. And luckily that was something I was blessed with. So.
Yeah, that is for sure. But then the next thing that you were talking about is, I think something that a lot of us can relate to as well is, that ice season jumping right into the river. So, I mean, how was that transition for you? Was it easy? Just you pull your boat out, you dunk it right back in, you're right back in the flow of things?
For me, it was not even a 12-hour turnaround. I loaded my snowmobiles and all my portables and everything on my big snowmobile trailer. I usually park that at my son's house because he has a nice flat place in town, and I live on the lake, and it's tough to park. And so I backed in, I unhooked my snowmobile trailer, hooked on my boat, which I conveniently also store in his garage, and right to the river. I mean, it wasn't even 12 hours. I went from tip-up fishing to walleye fishing on the Rainy River. So. It's funny when you think about it, that you think, you'll have this downtime, in between ice fishing and open water season. And there is not even, like I said, I didn't have 12 hours. I went literally from reeling up tip ups to pitching jigs and plastics in 12 hours. So Yeah, it was the transition. It happens like that for us, and then it's straight into sturgeon. So it's like there's literally no downtime. You're running nonstop.
So I was gonna joke and ask if you then just like store all your rods in the boat and everything, so you're always just ready to go. But then you mentioned sturgeon, and I was like, you have all different kinds of rods. So are you keeping like all of those in that garage too? Like, what is your organization? Because I cannot even control the rods that I have.
Okay, so the sturgeon rods I use are specific for sturgeon fishing. So those stay in the rafters in the basement or in the rafters in the garage. When I go to the river, all my walleye rods stay in there. So whether they be 7'1" JT Outdoor Products, JTXs, or JT Ascendants if I'm trolling, all my walleye rods stay right in the boat until the walleye season closes on the 14th at midnight. Then just so there's no confusion, like let's say, so then we go straight into sturgeon fishing. Okay. So I actually like to take all my walleye stuff out of the boat. And so that way, if I get stopped by the DNR and they question if I'm walleye fishing out of season, because the walleyes are then protected. So I like it to be plainly obvious that the only rods in my boat are 6 sturgeon rods, and that's it. I don't have a jig. I don't have any plastics. I literally have a flat of crawlers and 6 sturgeon rods, and that's it. There is no other gear in my boat aside from my sturgeon net. So I like to make it painfully obvious that we are targeting sturgeon. So in that scenario, all the other rods come out. But then once I'm done sturgeon fishing, the sturgeon rods come out, the walleye rods all go back in. So it's a constant shuffle.
Yeah, the struggle is real. I need more rod storage in my boat.
True story.
Never enough.
Well, and so with that, I have to ask, like, how was your opener? What were you fishing for?
So, I will tell you that this opener was a little different for me. It was what we're experiencing right now up here on Crane Lake, Sandpoint Lake, Cabotogama, Namakan, and Rainy Lake is massive flooding. We are about 6 to 7 feet over the flood curve. And with that being said, we have had a lot of trips canceled. So I had some trips canceled. I mean, the resorts are becoming underwater. So they're starting to, send notices to customers. Hey, we're, the bar's underwater. There's no docks. So there are some trips starting to be canceled. And so that is actually opening up days in our schedule that have been booked for a year. So kind of spur of the moment, I didn't have any customers for the opener. And the neighbor's kid we were jaw jacking in the driveway, and he said, geez, I'd really like to go pike fishing. And I thought, well, geez, you know what? I don't have any customers. I said, I'll take you pike fishing. Come on. So we went and we cast all day for northern pike, and we had a pretty good day. We didn't have any real super tankers, but we caught some pretty respectable fish. And he said, it's kind of funny. He said, my dad was always a pike guy. And he said, you introduced him to walleye fishing, and now we never pike fish anymore. He said, this will probably be the only time I pike fish all year. And I just laughed. I thought, it is funny how we evolve as anglers, because I was a pike guy my whole life. And then once I started walleye fishing, I really don't target pike very often. Now I do in the spring, because I feel like big pike are consolidated in the spring and you have a better shot at a real big one. But the way he said it to me, it really got me thinking that it's funny how as anglers we transition. Like we can be hyper focused on one species or one technique and absorb all the information and read the articles and all of a sudden you see something flashy over here and whoa, look at that, and all of a sudden you're into something that, that's totally different. And it's just another rabbit hole you can go down. It's there. You never stop learning when it comes to fishing. There's so many techniques and so many species. And to me, that's the appeal of fishing is, anytime you can unlock, kind of a new pattern or something that you think, man, I wonder if anybody's ever done this before. That's to me, that's the appeal of fishing. Sorry, my dogs are distracting me.
That's okay. Well, and I do love that, hearing about the pike fishing, because I just think it's funny, like in open water. I mean, there are people that go out and do it for sure. But so often the pike are like the side effect of bass fishing. Like, how annoying.
Sure.
Like, oh, I'm
Sure.
pan fishing and they like bit off my line or whatever, people like just are so grumpy about it, I feel like. But then ice season comes around and like everybody wants to tip up fish and like loves pike. And so to make that transition across, like, how do you do that?
Yeah, no, that is pretty funny. I'll tell you a funny story is we do a lot of shore lunches, and shore lunches that, it might not seem like it to an outsider, but that actually does put quite a bit of extra pressure on a guide. Okay, so now I got to find eaters, right? So Rainy Lake has a slot limit, right? So anything, it's got to be under 18 to keep on Rainy Lake. So if we go out and we're catching 22 to 25s, or you're like, well, reel them up, folks. We got to move. We got to go catch smaller fish. And it's like, it does put a little extra. So there's a lot of times where if I catch 24 or somebody sticks an under 30 pike, I'll throw it right in the live well. And customers they get funny. They're, oh, geez, I don't want to eat a pike. And I always tell them, I say, look, I'll eat the pike. That's fine. You guys eat the walleyes and I'll eat the pike. Well, when you filleted, countless walleyes and pike, you can tell the difference, when you're looking at the fillet. So I will always fry the pike first and put that on the table. And customers just gobble it up. All I've ever had, and you tell them, hey, you know what? That's pike. And they just can't believe it. And it's like white, it's flaky, it's delicious, so I have opened a lot of eyes to my gosh, actually, pike's pretty good table fare, and you kind of can help alleviate a little bit of that stigma that they're only good if they're pickled or people just, oh geez, I just prefer wallet. Well, if you've actually they can be harder to fillet if you're new at it. But with a little bit of practice, those wide bones slip right out. It's not a problem. And they are delicious.
And then are you one of those people using like an electric knife, or you use like a good old trusty handheld knife?
Both. I use both. I will tell you, like, if it's just a couple walleyes or a couple of pike, I usually use a blade. If I'm coming in with, 40 or 50 crappies in the box, I'm using my electric because I don't want to be there all night, So yeah, it's, I use both.
There's a question here from Travis, because you were talking about, catching walleyes and pike. And Travis is asking, any idea why trolling stick baits for walleye in early spring seems to be so overlooked in Minnesota when it's effective elsewhere?
Oh, Travis, super solid question. That's a super solid question. I can't say why it's overlooked. I will tell you that so typically for me, I don't really troll them in the spring, but I do cast stick baits. Kind of depending on who my customers are. Sometimes you have to troll, but I would prefer to cast them. But that is a solid observation, actually. I don't know why it's stick baits produce a lot of walleyes. Suspended stick baits, up shallow. You got a shallow water bay. That's got a soft, like a mud bottom or a dark bottom. That water warms up really, really quickly. Actually, it warms up, significantly faster than the surrounding bays. That's going to draw fish in, and stick baits is a really solid option.
I think, Travis, one of the things about trolling in Minnesota is that it's one of the only states in the Midwest that has the 1-line limit for open water. And I think there's this misnomer when you're trolling that you need to have more than 1 line. That, coupled with just the fact that messing with treble hooks is kind of just a pain in the butt. And so people, they like jigging, like vertical jigging and casting jigging wraps and stuff like that. It just seems to be a little bit more simple. I think people are able to gather that a little bit more. But us included, like, we didn't troll a whole lot until we started fishing with some of our friends in northern Wisconsin, and we trolled for panfish, like that's kind of our thing. But now we start trolling for that spring walleye, and it is some of the most fun and rewarding fishing, especially when it's at night. But yeah, I did have to buy myself a pair of safety glasses because I'm afraid of getting hooked in the face.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's awesome. Plus, if you know that it's working, maybe I wouldn't tell people that, because if the fish get too used to it, maybe they'll stop biting. So I guess, Donnie, the other question that I was going to ask you, when you're targeting pike in open water, what are you using for baits? Are you downsizing, upsizing because it's spring? Like, what does that look like?
So springtime pike fishing is downsizing and typically slow. So I use suspended stick baits, the exact same baits stick baits I throw for walleyes. So, I will use any suspending stick baits unless the fish are pushed way in. If they're pushed way in, and there are times that I'm casting to 16 inches of water. And in that case, even a suspending stick bait is going to dive too deep. So in that case, you want a stick bait, a floater, so you can cast it out and twitch, and pause. Long pause. Snap, snap. Long pause. Snap, snap. That was a long pause. You got impatient on me. Sometimes. So they're not, right when they're coming out of the shallows, they're not feeding super heavy, not right away. And a lot of times it's those twitch baits, those stick baits, even the baits that you wouldn't even think that you could fish this way. If they're floaters, you can snap them and pause them, and they're not going to grab that junk in a foot of water or 16, 18 inches of water. And a lot of times that's where those pike are laying. They're getting up and sunning themselves. They don't want to run things down. They don't want to expend a ton of energy chasing down giant baits. A lot of people, when they're pike fishing, they're throwing these, and I mean, I was guilty of this for years and years and years. I'm throwing these great big musky sized baits in the spring, and it's just not what they're feeding on. It's not what they're keying on, and it's not what they're looking for. Later in the season, when their metabolism is through the roof, and they are running baits down, that's a good time to upsize and maybe, make your retrieves a little faster. But in the spring, slow, pauses, and downsize your baits. I mean, I'm using stick baits, 3.5, 4 inches long, so that's what they're feeding on. And so for me, that's proven to be super successful over the years.
That's actually a really great point that you're making. And because you got to think about what those pike are going through. So, we're talking all about, for all these other fish, like spawn is coming or spawn is happening. But that's actually something that happens for the pike, like early spring. Like, they leave those ice zones, they go up in a lot of cases, like to the shallowest spots, like ditches in some cases. And those pike are already spawned out at this point. So when they're coming back to the other grounds, but I think the other thing that the pike know is happening is that those other fish are spawning. So to see a giant, huge fish, it's going to be like running away. It's a big enough fish. They're not going to get it. But they know that if they're patient, then they're going to get that tiny little fry that's easy forage.
Sure. Yep.
I just feel like I got to try that now. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, and those water temps too, like what Donnie's talking about, that's kind of in that, that 40 to 50 range. And you have to think most of the big pike forage that they eat most of the summer, that's the bluegills, the crappies, the perch, a lot of that stuff is still out into the main basin, or they're sitting in their pre-spawn spot just outside of where they're the transition line between mud and their habitat, their spawning grounds are, and they just don't have any big fish up that shallow. Most of it is just the little forage. And so that's what lends to that kind of.
That's the old match the hatch.
Mm-hmm.
That's super true.
You want to throw what they're eating.
The other thing that I'm really liking about this is because you were talking about how it's so flooded up by you, but this is a situation where you're able to throw these baits and have that really great control, as long as you can kind of control your boat and all, where you're at. But I mean, I think especially down by us, otherwise people are thinking walleyes and then you're using jigs like right at the bottom, but fishing that really high water can be tough.
Oh yeah. So boat control is probably the most important thing when it comes to spring fishing, either walleyes or pike honestly, anytime. Boat control. So the mistake that I see the most, and Rainy Lake is a big tourist area, so we get to watch a lot of people that maybe don't have the most experience in the world, running their boats, and that, that's fair, that they don't do it for a living. It's for them, it's a hobby or a vacation or what have you. But especially in the spring, typically what we see is people run over the fish with their boat before they start fishing, right? So they'll see, so I'll give you a clue on this lake. It's pretty easy to see what the guides are doing, right? We all run great big 20 to 22 foot fiberglass boats, and it's some of the guys got wraps and some of them got their sponsor stickers all over the place. So if you just sit back and you're observant, you can see pretty quick, okay, so all right, well, God, we've got like 8 guides pull in here and kind of pitch these windblown shorelines and stuff. Well, then you watch them try to do it, and they literally will run the fish right over and then dump the trolling motor in and be like, well, yeah, we tried that, we didn't catch it. Well, if you were to image it first, say, set your side imaging up for 80 feet out, or using your live imaging if you have one of those options, and scan it first, you can get a pretty good picture of where those fish are situated, and drop a couple waypoints on them, and okay, you know what, I got to slow down before I get here and put my trolling motor down, or put my power poles down, or my Talon, or if you have one of those options. Typically what we watch happen is when people try to replicate what we do, is they just run the fish right over, and then they can't, well, geez, I'm like, you guys are catching them and we're not. Well, that comes down to boat positioning, every time. You could do everything else the same, but if you spook them out of there with your boat, before you start fishing, you're going to probably not have terrific results.
Well, that's funny because sometimes in the late end of the season, fall, and we're talking to different people in different areas. And, if you have really, really busy places that get hit all the time, are very, full of recreation, or like jet skiers and stuff, sometimes the fish do really start to tune those boats out. But when it comes to spring and those conditions change and they haven't had the boats going over them, and maybe snowmobiles and stuff, but that's different when there's all that ice. So you got to remember that, especially in springtime, like, fish, I think, are a little bit more skittish than any other time of the year.
Well, and that might be because you're targeting when they're more shallow than any other time of the year. Right. So I don't necessarily know if they're more skittish. So here's something I will tell you that So I have a live scope, in my boat, and I will tell you that I've learned a couple of things, over the years watching it, and I use it a little bit different than tournament guys. But one thing I've learned is that fish never sit still. Like, so let's say I come over a reef and I'm just got my traditional 2D sonar. I go, oh gosh, there's a stack of fish here right on the edge, and you circle back around, and you go to spot lock on me. Where the heck did they were just here? Like I literally put a dot on them. And what I've learned, the last 3-4 years from watching this thing is they literally never stop moving. They're always cruising. And one of the other things I've learned is, and this is directly relatable to crappie fishing, is it seems like 20 feet. Okay, so if I scan a brush pile or a crib or vertical trees that I like to fish, if I get that boat within 20 feet of said structure, they're gone. If you can stay outside of that 20 feet and pitch to them or cast to them, it seems like they don't spook. And so I fish every single day, so this isn't a well, I saw it one time and now I think it's the cardinal rule. Like that this scenario has played out over and over and over and over again where even if I get blown in by the wind or something, and you look down and you're like, oh geez, I'm 17 feet, and you look back, you scan back to the crib, and they're just gone. And you're like, I got closer than 20, or sometimes you find a piece of structure that you didn't know was there. Like it could be something you've gone over 20 times, and all of a sudden you're like, well, was that a tree there? What was that? And you scan over, and you're like, oh, good grief! Look at this. How could I have missed this 20 times? But because you got closer than 20 feet, the fish just blow off it. It seems like I don't ever want to say anything's a hard and fast rule, but it does seem like 20 feet is like the threshold for whether crappies will spook off a structure or not. Now that could vary, of course, depending on wind conditions and light penetration and a million other things. But it seems like 20 foot's a good rule of thumb.
That's interesting. And I'm kind of applying this a little bit differently in my mind, so I hope I can convey this and have it make sense. But I think, not everyone has like a live graphing type system. Not everyone is able to observe those things. So super appreciate you sharing that, first of all. But I think the other thing about that is people who don't have graph systems like that so often rely on old knowledge. And, like so-and-so's waypoints, like grandpa or dad or mom or whoever's waypoints those were, and every year they hit those spots. And Josh and I love your point about fish are moving around. They don't just sit still. And so I think so often people have spots, but it's important to realize like what makes that spot good. Is it the structure, or do you just happen to be at the right depth at the right time of the year? And so I love your point about, fish are moving around, because start taking note of the spots that you're using or fishing and seeing what those conditions are, and then trying to apply that different ways around the lake. And then, like you're saying, once you have those spots, don't over approach it. Just because like there's a dot on the map doesn't mean that you have to sit immediately on it. That's a good way to mark something. But then to be able to approach it with, a casting type situation, that might help you be more successful.
Sure. So what I would call what you're referring to there is fishing memories, right? So again, I see this a lot. So let's say some guys come up here in August and they hire me, and we go out on the reefs and we kind of show them that bite or what have you, and they have a lot of success. And then all of a sudden you run into them and they're up here for the opener, and they're like, well, geez, we fished the exact same spots you showed us. And you're like, well, guy, that was in August. That's not where they are right now. So fishing memories can be, if it's the same time of year, if it's the same weather pattern, if the bait is in the same pattern, I'll be honest with you. I probably have 10,000 waypoints on my graph on my boat, and they're not marking the spot. Okay. They're marking fish. right? So when you see a waypoint on my graph, I moved my cursor over. Like, so let's say I'm scanning a reef, or let's say I'm even side scanning a rock pile. Okay, and I'm like so that's right now. That's what I do in the spring. I use a lot of side imaging, and I'm scanning a rock pile. Oh yeah, it's loaded. I'll drag a waypoint. I'll drag a waypoint right over there. Beep, and it's actually marking fish, not the spot, fish. And then I use that to circle around and spot lock, so I actually can put my cursor right back where the fish were and measure, right? So your graph will tell you how far that cursor is. So I go, okay, you know what? I want a nice easy pitch for my customer. I want to be, 30 feet out. And so I'll get 30 feet upwind and spot lock. And I know I'm exactly, because I can use my cursor and it will tell me how far I am. Okay, I'm 30 feet from the edge of that rock pile. Then I can say to my customers, hey, you know what? It's a light, easy pitch. We don't have to whip the shiner off the jig. It's a light, easy pitch. And, because I'm supremely confident because I put a cursor on the fish, right? So I don't mark spots like, okay, I'll drop a waypoint on this reef. That reef might have 800 waypoints on it because I drop a spot exactly where they are and go, okay, that's waypoint number 8977. Okay, I'm going to turn around and spot lock on 8977. Right, so it's not marking. I could give you all my waypoints in the world. It wouldn't make a bit of difference unless you knew what time, what the presentation was. What season we're in, what time of year, I could give you all the waypoints in the world. It doesn't mean you're going to come catch fish. Right?
Oh my gosh,
the rest of the information's up here.
The rest of the information is fishing memories.
Right.
So then with that, what's coming up in the year? Like, what does the rest of your summer look like? The rest of the summer, it's barely started.
So I have exactly 3 days unbooked between now and September 16th. And that's just because I had a cancellation. So I'm gonna be insanely busy. Again, and I would anticipate that September and October will fill in kind of as the summer goes, and then I'll fish either right through October. November I'll go back to Kansas and Missouri deer hunting, and then we got early ice on red.
That's for sure.
The cycle never stops, and from then we'll go right back into guiding up here, and then we'll guide through January, take a little bit of February off, and then I'll have you guys in March.
That's awesome. Can't wait for that.
For your summer, yeah, really. For your summer trips, are those like multi-species trips? Is that like a chat with you, or is that dependent on the bite? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, it's Rainy Lake it really is a gem. We've got trophy caliber, like elite caliber, walleyes, northern pike. Our crappie bite is insane, as you guys know. I mean, I know you follow along and see the pictures. We've got a good muskie fishery. Smallmouth bass fishery is insane here. So I do typically leave it up to the customer. So I'll typically call my customers about a week out, and I'll say, hey, Captain Donnie here, and just touching base, just kind of want to set this trip up for success, for your version of success. So what would you like? Is there a specific species you would like to target, or is there a new technique you would like to learn, or I want to set the trip up so it's what you want. So I can't do that without some very basic information. So I will give the customers the choice. If you want to go catch smallies, we'll go catch smallies. I will, if I'm on a super bite, like something that's just insane, I will nudge. If they say, oh geez, we'd really like to go catch a bunch of red horse suckers, maybe there's something else we could do, so, but for the most part, I let the customers choose. And some people are are super specific. Like, oh, geez, I've never really done much, trolling with snap weights. Is there some way? Yep, you bet. Come on, I'll show you all about it. Or most people just want to bend the rod. Honestly, they don't care. I just put me on fish. So okay, and if that's the case, we're going walleye fishing.
Go walleye fishing. I was gonna say everyone gets like one smallie per trip at least. Everyone gets to catch at least one because that is such a good fight.
Oh yeah, and we have some super tankers up here. I mean, it's not unheard of to catch 22, 23-inch smallies. Just absolute footballs, and boy, I tell you what, on medium lights, they'll give you a run for your money.
Hey, what are the chances we can catch one of those on our ice trip? I'm kidding.
Well, they don't necessarily cohabitate where the crappies are going to be. So that would be a stretch. Now, I do have a spot, but it would be quite a Sadie Ray. My short hair got out.
Oh
no. She's behaving for now.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll have to see what the conditions are like as we get closer to winter, but I won't hold my breath, I'll tell you that.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. So I guess, for people who are interested in booking that weekend, or you said 3 days maybe, how do they get a hold of you for that?
If people want to book?
Yeah.
They can just message me through Facebook Messenger. If you haven't friend requested me, or maybe if you don't want a friend request me, I think you can still send me a message. Or you can call Rainy Days Guide Service, direct and request Captain Donnie. I will tell you, if you're looking at booking something this summer, it's unfortunately I am booked up. It is pretty crazy that I'm booked that far out, but it is a fact that I actually cannot physically add another day at this point until mid-September. So if you're looking to book 2023, awesome, give me a shout. If you want, you'll put up my contact information at the end of the show or something, or you want me just to throw it out there?
Yeah, absolutely, we can.
All right. Yeah,
well,
put up a little link to. I don't know how to do it. Listen, if it ain't a fish finder, I get a little confused. So technology's not my thing.
In some ways, this computer is easier than a fish finder. I'm just saying.
I'm at. It depends on what you're used to running.
Yeah, well, I guess that is for sure. Josh was able to find rainydaysoutdoors.com website super easily. And gosh, if there wasn't a more beautiful picture on the front, I don't know. Like, I'm ready to come there right now. So even if you're not booking immediately, I would suggest go and check out this website because it's actually pretty awesome.
There she is right there.
That's
That's amazing.
That's exactly what the picture looks like, but backwards.
A little inverted.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. Well, I know that we're definitely going to be following along on your adventures. Because gosh, when you were talking in the beginning of the trip, oh yeah, we found like a few pike this past week. They weren't giant. Yeah, go and check out Captain Donnie's page because there were some great fish caught this past weekend. I know so many other great ones to come as well. So we'll be following along. We did get those links up. It looks like they all went. Oh, hey, Megan, I didn't even see your comment there.
Is Megan on board?
What'd you say?
Is Megan on board?
Yeah, she's here. She's saying hi to you.
We're going to chat.
We should just bring her in the show because I feel like I want to be a part of this. But anyways, I know that we're going to be following along all your fun fishing stuff this summer, and even into winter. And with that, thanks for being here to chat about all of this.
Well, that was it. That was easy.
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked for 45 minutes. I mean, that's the thing is we could sit here all night. That's.
I know. I actually did. We need to pick a. Okay. We're taking care of some striker business behind the scenes.
I just assumed it was fishing. Oh my gosh. But I know that we will probably not have you on that soon because it sounds like you'll be guiding and I'm not going to steal you away from that. But we will definitely be talking again soon because this is always a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't be afraid to do a midsummer update.
Oh, perfect. Well, then we'll book it.
Perfect. Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, and to the people at home, thank you guys as well, because it is always a ton of fun hearing your questions and comments and things along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise, we're looking forward to seeing you on next week's edition of Hook, Line, and